Welcome to the Astoria Film Festival Step and Repeat interviews. Today we're speaking with Louie Cortes, whose film Eve appears in our 2020 festival.
Yes.
Tell us about Eve, about your background and kind of what led you to make the film.
So my background is predominantly in horror, like horror in general. I've directed, I don't know, like 8 short films, all horror themed, and one feature that's actually a drama comedy. So it's funny how all my short films, for some reason, are horror, but the one feature I directed is a drama.
So it's like it would be even better if it was like a romantic comedy, like a horror romantic rom-com horror.
It kind of is a rom-com. It kind of, not fully. But with Eve, I wanted to just kind of tell, I'm not a parent personally. And I just wanted to tell, like, basically the stories about the sacrifices a parent would make for their kids. You know, and I have a lot of friends and family, obviously, that have children. And I just kind of wanted to kind of tell the story, like, what it would be like if you wanted to, what lengths you would go to for your child, and just show the perspective of this mother who obviously has some sort of creature inside of her that's her offspring, and then just kind of this guy that's down on his luck and is going to extreme lengths to support his child. So that was the inspiration for Eve.
So what made you think of that, though? Were you just like
there's a couple of older films that kind of inspired me, and I had a friend of mine, she was pregnant, and then she gave birth, and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I have so many friends now as I've gotten older that are having kids, and that's what kind of inspired it. And then I was also watching a couple of different, like Rosemary's Baby and stuff like that. I was like, what could I do to take that concept and adjust it to a story I would want to tell? So.
Very cool. And how did you get started in film?
I've been doing it now since 2013, I think. I went to school for media technology, so that's kind of where I started, but that was, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago. And then, you know, when I was in my mid-20s, I started kind of writing films, and that's where I kind of started with other, like, not as a director, but more as just a writer and cinematographer on other people's, like, you know, short films, features. And I was just like, you know what, I want to have my own production company and make my own films, and that's what led me to where I am now, basically. So
what are you working on these days? Any new projects in the
works? Right now I'm writing another short film, longer than Eve. It's like a long form short film. It'll probably be about 40 minutes. And then I'm writing my next feature, which I probably won't start until next year. So I'm just kind of working out the screenplay now, and then hopefully, you know, once I do all my pre-production, I can start hopefully beginning of next year, see what happens. It's like this, I'm writing it, so I'm like, all right, I can't tell this story in 7 minutes. There's too much to unpack, so I kind of have to, it's got to be a little longer. And, you know, it's a challenge to me because you know, I've directed a 90-minute film, but I want to tell a story that's not 7 minutes, but it's not 90 minutes. So it's somewhere in between. You know, I've never done that personally. So I'm like, let's see what happens. It's an experiment it's a challenge to myself.
It's a personal film challenge.
Exactly.
And so horror it's interesting with our kids' film workshops now. We've been doing it for 2 years. And I think every film, maybe except one, is a horror film. And the kids choose, like the kids decide what to do. They decide the themes. And every time the kids are like, horror. And I'm like, really? So what drew you towards horror?
Ever since I was a kid, I've always been a fan of like horror films, and Halloween's my favorite holiday. And that's another thing I do. I have a podcast that we focus on Halloween as a holiday in general. And that's kind of predominantly what I've always just gravitated towards. And, you know, I guess, you know, I think if you look at a lot of like known filmmakers, like even some huge filmmakers, a lot of their first films were horror films. So I feel like, you know, they're not easy to make. I think there's like this weird illusion, like this misconception that horror films are easy. They're not. You know, a lot of concepts have been done to death. But I think if you can take something, let's say like a zombie themed film, and kind of put your own spin on it, that's what people want to see. So I just think as a kid, you think horror is fun, and I just feel like you just gravitate towards it. That's what I think, at least.
I thought it was some sense of like control over the madness of the world, if you would.
Yeah, kind of. I'm sure, maybe.
The horror of the world, but you control it because it's your own little world, right?
Exactly.
But
Yeah. Yeah, when you're like 5 or 6, you see like, Freddy Krueger or something like that. And you're like, oh, you're so scared of it. But then you find out that it's just makeup. And then how do they do that? How do they change his voice? And I feel like it just seems like a fun genre than like a drama where it's like two people sitting on a couch talking about their relationship. Don't get me wrong. I love movies like that. But I feel like when it comes to younger people, or even just in general filmmakers, horror films kind of just seem like a lot of fun, and I guess that's why
you're
so many
mostly
people.
8 to 18, so that kind of fits.
Yeah, exactly. That's the demographic right there.
Where can people find you and your works?
You could find me basically at newneedleproductions.com. That'll link you to a bunch of my short films and trailers and things I'm working on now. My Instagram is New Needle Productions. Type in New Needle Productions, I pop up. And then my Twitter is New Needle PROD. That's my Twitter handle. And I update, when I'm working on stuff all the time. I'm on social media all the time. So that's the easiest place that's where you could find me. So
very cool. And anything you'd like to say before we wrap up? Anything at all?
No, just thank you guys for accepting the film. Can't wait to screen, and I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.